answer is, my son, minutely study the nature of your own self. This is really important. You know, this is the do-it-yourself process. You know, you have to look at your own self and your own heart and see what you see there. You know, if you're not willing to do that, then you're not ready for it. If you're, you know, if you want to follow Raga, if you want to do Raganuga Bhakti, then it means that you should be able to see within your own heart a desire to have a particular kind of relationship with Krishna.
Yeah.
You know, following what you've heard about in Srimad Bhagavatam. Simple as that. You know, my son, minutely study the nature of your own self. Cultivate the sentiment according to the liking produced from that nature.
Yeah.
In pursuance of that sentiment, follow in the footsteps of the accomplished devotees having mastery over that sentiment. In so doing, you should only scrutinize your own trend of mind. In other words, it's not something that someone imposes upon you. You scrutinize your own trend of mind. What do you want? What is your heart's desire? If your mind is inclined to the path of loving devotion, then do according to that inclination, so long as you feel that your inclination toward loving devotion has not been firm and steady. You should go on with the Vaidhi process of devotion with full confidence and application.
That's a good, the Vaidhi is simply supportive to that natural inclination.
He makes a very nice point here.
What page is this?
3:14. It says, what is the relation between devotion based on Vaidhi and devotion based on Raga? Babaji answers, listening to and chanting divine names, etc., which are included in Vaidhi devotion, are also included in the routine work of a devotee practicing loving devotion during his period as a novice. While internally being obedient to the men of Braja, he enjoys happiness of constant service. He physically observes the rules and regulations of Vaidhi devotion at one and the same time.
So when it's Sunday in Vrindavan, you know the shop's working on a half day. Tuesday or Wednesday?
It's Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. Did you go already? Don't forget it. What he says that as Vaidhi Shraddha gives rise to eligibility for Vaidhi devotion, so Shraddha full of greed for Krishna engenders eligibility for devotion based on love. According to the nature of their own spiritual sentiments, the denizens of Braja have loving devotion. He who feels tempted to have that trend of mind which the inhabitants of Braja felt towards Krishna is alone entitled to have devotion based on love. Brajanath asks, what are the signs of that greed in this case? Babaji, hearing about the sweet, loving devotion of the denizens of Braja, one feels a longing to have that. That desire is the sign of the origin of that greed. Very simple. Hearing about, just like in even a striped bit, not only hearing about, but just even seeing a picture of Krishna dancing with the gopis and Rasas. If one sees that picture and wishes that he could also attain that, that in of itself is the
Qualification.
beginning of one's rag bhakti. So the hearing about the sweet, loving devotion of the denizens of Braja, one feels a longing to have that. That desire is the sign of the origin of that greed. Hearing stories about Krishna, those entitled to Vaidhi Bhakti, having to depend on their intellect, shastras and reasoning. But in the matter of unalloyed devotion, there is no question of intellect, shastra and reasoning. Unalloyed devotion depends for its origin, the development, on the eager longing to own some particular sentiment of the denizens of Braja. This is so profound and beautiful. Here, listen to this. Hearing stories about Krishna, those entitled to Vaidhi Bhakti, having to depend on their intellect, shastras, and have to depend, because some of the English is wrong, have to depend on their intellect, shastras, and reasoning. But in the matter of unalloyed devotion, that means that this Vaidhi Bhakti is not unalloyed devotion. But in the matter of unalloyed devotion, there is no question of intellect, shastras, and reasoning. Unalloyed devotion depends for its origin and development on the eager longing to own some particular sentiment of the denizens of Braja. What are the processes of Raganuga Bhakti? A devotee always remembers that inhabitant of Braja whose mode of service he covets. He covets to have. And being engaged in talks of joyful sports of Sri Krishna, their beloved, he always lives in Braja in his spiritual sense. He feels tempted to have that motion of the men of Braja, follow in their footsteps and always serve Krishna in two ways, externally as a novice and internally as an accomplished devotee. Novice means Vaidhi. And what is the relationship between devotion based on Vaidhi and devotion based on Rag? Listening to and chanting divine names, which are included in Vaidhi devotion, are also included in routine work of devotion of a devotee practicing Vaidhi devotion during his period as a novice, while internally being obedient to the men of Braja. In other words, during the period as a novice, he was doing this Vaidhi Bhakti, hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. So the same thing that he was doing in novice, he will be doing now, while internally being obedient to the men of Braja, he enjoys the happiness of constant service there's supposed to be a period there instead of comma. Anyway. While physically observing the rules of Vaidhi devotion at one and the same time. Then he says, we already read that. What is the superiority of devotion based on love? so that you can quickly get the result. Where's the fighting process? Long. I'm trying to see if that, I want to find that statement. I don't know if it's in this chapter or where. So then he says, and this is after this, minutely study the nature of your own self. Then Vijay says, my master, I have been studying Srimad Bhagavatam for a long time past, and I listen to the transcendental activities of Sri Krishna. Whenever I deliberate on the transcendental activities of Sri Krishna, my mind becomes greatly inclined to serve the divine couple under the directions of Srimati Lalita Devi. Just you're trying to drop a subtle hint.
Trying to show a good example. That's all.
Babaji, you need not say more. You are a handmaid in the service of Lalita Devi. What sort of service do you like best? Methinks I am ordered by Sri Lalita Devi to string garlands of flowers. I shall call beautiful flowers, throwing out the bad ones. Well, get all the most beautiful flowers together, with which I shall make garlands and hand over them to her. She will smile upon me out of infinite grace and put them around the neck of Radha and Krishna. Babaji, I bless you that your desire for divine service may be fulfilled. I want divine service too. Vijay Kumar at once fell down at the lotus feet of his preceptor and began to shed unceasing tears. Seeing his state of emotion, Babaji Mahasai said, my son, you go on practicing this sort of loving devotion constantly, but externally make yourself in practicing the rites of Vaidhi Bhakti. Seeing the spiritual wealth of Vijay Kumar, Brajanath submitted to the feet of his preceptor. My master, whenever I listen to the transcendental activities of Sri Krishna, I feel the urge of a desire in the footsteps of Subha. What thing do you like to do best? He's already figured it out. The Guru is not actually, it's not like the disciple's in the dark and the Guru, disciple has no idea, where the hell he's going, what he wants. The disciple has to have already come to some conclusions. He has to have already let's say, noticed some psychological developments within his own heart. That if I could just be like that, that has to have arisen. It mentions that what is it? He says, Yes, as Vaidhi Shraddha gives rise to eligibility for Vidhi devotion, so Shraddha, full of greed, or Lobhamai, is the technical word for it. Lobhamai Shraddha. So Shraddha, full of greed for Krishna, engenders eligibility for love based, for devotion based on love. According to the nature of their own spiritual sentiments, the denizens of Braja have loving devotion. He who feels tempted to have that trend of mind which the inhabitants of Braja felt towards Krishna is alone entitled to have, in other words, is alone entitled for Raganuga Bhakti. Who was entitled for Raganuga Bhakti? Is one who, having heard about the beautiful activities of Krishna with his devotees, wishes that he could also have a similar relationship with Krishna. That's all that's required. That's the only, that is the beginning. Where did it say something about the beginning? Interesting here, he says, materialistic minds naturally like to live in contact with matter, and that liking develops into attachment, or raga. Such just as the eyes become restless on seeing beauteous things. In this case, there is attraction in the matter and attachment in the mind. But when Sri Krishna becomes the only object of that attachment, it is called devotion based on love, or Raganuga Bhakti. Sri Rupa Goswami has said, absolute undivided attention to one's beloved is called raga, and when devotion to Krishna becomes full of the raga, it is called devotion based on love, or Raganuga Bhakti. Briefly speaking, love thirst for Krishna is called devotion based on love. For one in whom this raga is not born, Shastric rules only are necessary for the inception of devotion. Respect, fear, and reverence are the main factors of Vaidhi Bhakti, while greed, or eager longing to see the joyful activities of Krishna, is the main factor of Raganuga Bhakti. Very clear. Very clear.
What's the name of this book?
Jaivadharma. Who is eligible to possess Raganuga Bhakti? Babaji says, as Vaidhi Shraddha gives rise to eligibility for Vaidhi devotion, so, Vidhi devotion says, so Shraddha, full of greed for Krishna, or an eager longing to see the joyful activities of Krishna, the hope to get the chance to go there and see there and participate in their leelas. This engenders the eligibility for love-based devotion. According to the nature of their own spiritual sentiments, the denizens of Braja have loving devotion. He who feels tempted to have that trend of mind which the inhabitants of Braja felt toward Krishna is alone entitled to have devotion based on love. What are the signs of that greed in this case? Babaji. Hearing about the sweet loving devotion of the denizens of Braja, one feels a longing to have that. That desire is the sign of the origin of that greed, or the origin of Ragmai, Lobhamaya Shraddha.
Can you read again what's the sign?
Says, hearing about the sweet, loving devotion, or in other words, I'll paraphrase it in a more stable way of English. The sweet, loving devotion of the denizens of Braja. If one feels a longing to have that desire is the sign of the origin of greed, or Lobhamaya Shraddha. The origin of that greed. Simply by hearing about the pastimes of Krishna in Braja, with the gopis, with the cowherd boys, like that. When one hearing about, feels within his own heart, feels someone doesn't have to come along and tell you you're feeling that. This is a nonsense thing that is going on. Someone doesn't have to come along and tell you you're feeling this now. No, just like when you eat, you feel satisfaction is coming gradually. So similarly, when you hear about the pastimes of Krishna, you feel your own heart being attracted to Krishna. When you notice within your own heart that you're feeling attracted toward Krishna, in a way, by having heard about, for example, even as mentioned in another place in the same book, that when one will see, either by hearing about Krishna's activities or by seeing a picture of Krishna's dancing with the gopis in the rasa dance, if one will think, if I could also have, just if as soon as that, just the split second that thought crosses your mind, that if I could, wow, wouldn't it be wonderful? Because we've heard that the sages of Dandakaranya have also achieved. But if just even the thought, by seeing the picture, wishing that we could also dance with Krishna in the rasa dance, as soon as that happens, immediately one is eligible for Raganuga Bhakti. That's the beginning of his Raga Bhakti. It is so simple. And that is the grace, the unlimited grace of this Guru Parampara. Because this Guru Parampara is distributing that Bhakti which has been ordained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is giving us Rag Bhakti, and is giving us through this Guru Parampara. Just because you look in Krishna book, there's a beautiful picture of the rasa dance, and you see the sweetness of Krishna's face, and you wish that if I could just be there too, if I could also, I don't know what other people think, I don't know what other people have experienced, but that's what I experienced by coming in contact with Prabhupada's movement. I don't know where everybody else is at, but when I heard about Krishna's rasa dance with Krishna, with the gopis, then immediately, no one had to tell me, immediately, within my heart, I wished that I could also become like the gopis and dance with Krishna in the rasa dance. Within the first week, I saw Krishna. I got darshan of Krishna within the first week of my involvement with this Hare Krishna movement. So powerful is this movement. People don't understand the potency of this movement. People don't understand. They take it cheaply. They don't care for it. Maybe they didn't have the experiences that I experienced, but when I experienced Krishna coming home from the pasturing grounds and seeing him coming home from the pasturing grounds with my own eyes, within the first week, he revealed himself to me and convinced me that he was a reality. I saw Krishna and Balaram and all the cowherd boys and all the cows. I heard their transcendental flutes. I heard their transcendental ankle bells overcoming me. They overwhelmed me and inundated my heart with transcendental bliss. Who was doing that? It wasn't my own figment of my imagination. Krishna personally appeared before me with all of his cowherd boys and calves. That's what convinced me never to leave this movement. It was Prabhupada's movement that did that. Only 1 week in the movement, and I got so much mercy. We didn't even have deities in the temple. He personally came. The living, moving, beautiful Krishna in Balaram. And all the cowherd boys, so beautifully smiling and making such an incredibly joyous noise. Amazing.
But now they're when you tell you something and they're about Krishna, and then they just jump over gopis and sometimes this is not for us, you just forget, don't be mental, don't be savajya.
It's all nonsense. I'm
just,
telling you,
I know.
these people are total nonsense. They have no eligibility. Simply by seeing the beautiful picture. Not only that, I picked up Bhagavad Gita. I was smoking dope. I was smoking my father's marijuana. Sitting in my father's house. Completely bewildered. I opened up the Bhagavad Gita. I had already read Ishopanishad. And in spite of the fact that I was still smoking marijuana, I hadn't given it up. But I recognized just when I finished reading the Ishopanishad, I realized that I couldn't go back. I realized that I had met my eternal spiritual master. That he had come to rescue me. But still I was attached. I was still smoking the marijuana. It took me 1 week to give up smoking marijuana. 1 week after I finished reading, it took me 1 week to read Ishopanishad because I sat down with a dictionary and read every line very, very carefully. And I became so convinced. I remember when I read it, I was afraid to read about the author because I was afraid to read about the person that I had surrendered to. But it so affected me that even without knowing what was Dandavats, even without knowing what it meant to bow down to anyone, my head was on the floor, and I was pouring incessant tears because I realized that my material life was totally finished. And then within a week's time, I came to the movement. I joined on Easter Sunday. A week after, my father drove me to the temple, and he was telling that don't you think that you'll be limiting yourself by monastic life? And I told him that the material world is limited, that the spiritual world is unlimited. So if I can get to the unlimited spiritual world, through the doorway of monastic life, then it cannot be called as limited. I explained that to him, and he was convinced. He let me go. You know. Then, but I sat down in my father's home and picked up Bhagavad Gita, and I read that in the introduction, Prabhu, in the introduction, the 80s, that one can have a relationship with Krishna. In the, what did it say? Where's Bhagavad Gita? Can't remember exactly what it says. One can have a relationship with Krishna, you know, in Shantaras, as a servant, you know, in Shantaras, or as a friend. You know, in a passive way in Shantaras, as a servant, as a friend, as a parent, or as what did it say? In conjugal ras. And I said, because you know my English wasn't very good then. I said, what does conjugal mean? You know, so I looked it up in the dictionary, and it said, as you know, as a wife. So I read one can have a relationship with Krishna, you know, as a wife. You know, and I said, oh, that's the one. That's beautiful. That's fantastic. I was, at that time, I hadn't given up my own wife yet. You know, I was still doggedly attached to the masculine egoism. But when I read that, it made such an impression, just that one little word, you know, in Prabhupada's introduction, that I realized, just from that one word, that this is wonderful. Then after coming to the movement, and we started, you know, we would read Krishna book every day when we come back from Harinam Sankirtan. We would do Harinam Sankirtan and distribute back to God in magazines, in dhoti and shaved head on the streets in Washington D.C. And we would sit around drinking the hot milk and taking a little Mahaprasad and reading Krishna book. And we read all these, you know, chapters of Krishna book. There was no, you know, taboo about reading Krishna book. We were supposed to read Krishna book because Prabhupada told that you should read it at least 15 minutes before taking rest, and you'll dream about Krishna. You know, and we wanted to dream about Krishna. Krishna didn't appear to me in a dream. It wasn't a dream. You know, it's one thing that we were reading Krishna book, you know, and then you know, because Prabhupada said that we'd dream about Krishna, and then I went to sleep and I dreamt about Krishna because I was reading Krishna book. That's well and good. But Krishna personally appeared, transcendentally appearing, manifesting, giving me a spurti darshan of his real self, walking, talking, moving, flute playing Krishna. He didn't talk. He wasn't talking. They were playing their flutes. Amazing, tumultuous, wonderful. I'll never forget that sound vibration that I heard is eternally fixed in my head. I'll never forget it. And the Ananda experience that I experienced at that time just totally overwhelmed my body. Still, I remain.
But that's fact.
You know?
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
This is a mask.
Where's the heart? Why am I not blissful? We're preaching about prema, prema, but there is no prema. Where is the prema? It's only written in black and white on the pages of the book. But it's not supposed to be confined to the book. You have to take what's in the book and put it in your heart. If you don't actually imbibe the spirit of what is being conveyed to us, the bhavas are coming through the books. But we have to take those bhavas into our heart. That's the receptivity of the disciple.
Actually, it was Nidhi Bharja who gave me those books from
Which
Kushikra.
books?
Those Kushikra books that Govinda brought over, he was the one who
Yeah.
gave me. So those
It's
books
so
were the
essential.
You were telling me that you were reading Kushika's books, right?
No, I just said that. You know,
So we don't learn it.
the main thing, that's a conflict, you see, what you're saying, that's a conflict, you know. It will be sooner or later, it will come across, you know, devotional life, because at one point, you know, you can't bear anymore having this mask, you know, really. Mask with tilak, you know, and, you know, very healthy, devotional look. But inside, you know, you're really scorching because, I mean,
Who are you?
what I'm doing here.
Who am I?
Yeah,
You know?
me,
Yes, exactly.
Right.
This question is the primordial, let's say, quest for truth of the soul. The soul has to, as long as he's in illusion, as long as he's experiencing an identity crisis, then an identity crisis means, who am I? Am I this body or what? You know, if I'm not this body, okay, fine, I'm Nitya Krishna Das. But what kind of Nitya Krishna Das? In what capacity? What is my Swarup? It has to come to this. This is the meaning in Bhagavatam, this beautiful shloka, most important shloka in the first canto. Kamasya naindriya priti labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasu narto yascheha karmati. This is such an important shloka because in this shloka is the seed of all success. If we will see that not arto means goal. Narto means there should be no other goal. Narto yas cheha karmavi. Karmavi means activities. That the activities of our mind and body should have no other goal than to let's say fulfill the purpose of our inquiries into the truth of the jiva. The jiva, in truth, is a premik bhakta. The premika bhakta is, what is prema? Prema is the expression of the innate swarup of the jiva. That prema has form. So it's very important that we come to grips with the reality of the actual form of our natural love for Krishna. The siddha of the jiva is simply that medium through which he expresses his heart's desire to please Krishna in a particular capacity. So it's very essential that we come to grip with the reality of who we are in terms of the realization of our siddha in order to experience complete satisfaction. Yayatma supersedes. We cannot understand the meaning of ahoituki apratiyata unless we actually understand the form in which that ahoituki bhakti is manifest. It's absolutely essential. It's the most essential thing. If we overlook this essential principle, then we actually undermine the very purpose of our involvement with the Krishna consciousness movement at the onset. how much essential it is for us to, with every action of our mind, body, and words, with every breath should be dedicated. Every action that we perform should be dedicated to the purpose of fulfilling the very, very absolute need of the soul, the necessity of the soul, which is prema. And that prema is manifest in particular form, either in Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, or Madhuri. It's essential that we find this thing. If we don't search for this, then it means that we're actually lost to the real purpose of our involvement with the Krishna consciousness movement. This Krishna consciousness movement is meant to awaken in you prema bhakti. Prabhupada's purpose is not to distribute rudimentary form of regulative devotional service. His purpose is to awaken Baba in your heart. The rudimentary form of devotional service is meant to protect your natural raga, to give a proper direction to your raga, to take it away from your attachment from the material side and reinstate your attachment at the lotus feet of Krishna. Prabhupada never actually emphasized anywhere in his books that we should become attached to the lotus feet of Vishnu. He emphasized again and again, you read Bhagavad Gita, in the most important shloka of the Bhagavad Gita, it is the quintessence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Man manam bhava mad bhakto. What does Prabhupada say? Prabhupada says that a devotee should not divert his attention to any other form of the Lord. Only this one form, the two-armed form of Krishna, who plays the flute, the boy who has bluish boy with a beautiful face and a peacock feather on his head. This is talking about Vrajanandan Krishna. He's not talking about Dwarkadish Krishna. He's not talking about, although he mentions as was standing in front of Arjuna, but he's discussing this point. For an intelligent devotee who understands the heart of Srila Prabhupada, he will understand. He will be able to easily put two and two together to understand who Srila Prabhupada was talking about in let's say with respect to the fact that Prabhupada has claimed Vrindavan as his home. He never claimed Dwarka as his home. He never claimed Vaikuntha as his home. Nowhere in South India does he claim to be his home. He has only one home. Even Mayapur is not his home. Vrindavan is his home. Prabhupada is the follower of Lalita Devi. I know who Prabhupada is. He is a follower of Lalita Devi. And he's the topmost maidservant of Srimati Radharani. I know who she is. Different devotees have different perception of their guru. This is allowed according to their bhava. But guru can give the sarup according to the necessity of the disciple. He reveals that sarup. we should never underestimate the actual let's see, power, potency of Srila Prabhupada in the matter of distributing rasa to the fallen conditioned souls. Srila Prabhupada came to fulfill, not to make the law, but to fulfill the purpose of the law of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. What is the law of the Gaudiya Sampradaya? It is to profusely distribute prema ras without considering who is fit and who is not fit. That is the law. And that is what Srila Prabhupada is doing and continues to do. So we have to be conscious of this point. Not take it cheaply. Otherwise we throw away the most valuable gem. It's just like, this is what devotees don't understand. They're thinking, many devotees I've seen, that they become disenchanted thinking that ISKCON is not giving what it actually was intended to give in the form of rag bhajan, rag bhakti. That's only because they have no adhikars. They don't have the adhikar, the intelligence, transcendental intelligence, to penetrate through the covering, the brown paper bag covering, which is concealing the $1 million budget within it. Some people want to just flash their $1 million, but there are many thieves, so that bhajan wouldn't be stolen by people who are transfixed on kam, krodh, lobh, moha, mada, matsarya, on the material planet. To protect them. So he is given what appears to be Vaidhi Bhakti. It is not Vaidhi Bhakti. He is given a kind of Vaidhi Bhakti which, when coupled with his personal ecstasies in the form of the Bhaktivedanta purports, it creates the revolution in the heart to love Brajamananda Krishna. It is meant for that, and it does it. Only people who are so stupid, foolish, shallow-minded, narrow-minded people, they will not be able to perceive the effect because of their lack of receptivity of heart. If you simply open your heart and hear Krishna book alone, even without any of the other books, just you hear Krishna book, and you will be completely fulfilled in your quest for prema bhakti. It will come, no doubt. Just Krishna book.
I was thinking today the same, I was thinking that the only Krishna book is like sufficient, like I was watching all these books on the table, and I think like, what's the use? I mean,
just read Venu Gita. Gopis attracted by the flute. Just read Pranaya Gita, which is the section where the gopis are rebuking Krishna for telling them to go back home after he's called with the flute. Just read Gopi Gita, where the gopis are crying in separation from Krishna on account of his having left them stranded. Just read Yugal Gita. Yugal Gita is the chapter which is called Gopis' Feelings of Separation. And just read the Gita. where Radharani is talking about it. These 5 Gits constitute the very quintessence of all Vedic literatures. Vedic literatures are like milk, and the Bhagavatam is the cream of that milk. And the 10th canto is like butter. And these 5 Gits found in the 10th canto are like the ghee. You cannot get any more essential than these Gits. If you will absorb yourself regularly in simply reading these Gits, or hearing them if you have them on cassette, then within your heart, the way Prabhupada has presented them, definitely, without a doubt, the Bhagavad Sampradaya. Because we have 2 Sampradayas. We have our Bhagavad Sampradaya, and we have our Diksha Sampradaya. But the work of the Bhagavad Sampradaya is to impress upon the heart the actual message of Bhagavad. The message of the Bhagavatam, or the purpose of the Bhagavatam, is to distribute the bhava. Effect within the heart the Brajaras. That's the only purpose of the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is not meant for any other purpose. It is meant to display. If you read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, you can definitely understand the same conclusion. That the only purpose of the Bhagavatam is to show the superlative nature of Braja Bhakti, the superlative quality of the Brajvasi, attitude, selfless, unalloyed love. Prabhupada wanted us to become unalloyed devotees. Unalloyed devotion means Rag Bhakti. It doesn't mean any other thing. If it's not Rag Bhakti, it's not unalloyed devotion. Prabhupada wanted to distribute that. But it was a question of our adhikar as to whether or not we get. If we increase our adhikar, then you cannot imagine the happiness that Srila Prabhupada experiences. If I try to give you a mango, but you don't take the mango, how can I say that I've given it to you? How can I feel the happiness of having given something wonderful? You see. So we have to upgrade our adhikar so that we become proper recipients of the full-fledged or the full gamut of the mercy that Prabhupada has to offer in the form of this ISKCON institution. This institution has everything, but it depends on us as to whether or not we're going to get what this institution actually has to offer. Many of the leaders, even most of the so-called leaders in our institution, may not even have enough to understand it. Although I shouldn't say such things. But it doesn't matter. There's nothing stopping any one of us individually from getting the mercy that this Bhagavad Sampradaya has to offer. Bhagavad Sampradaya is not dependent on initiation. It's dependent on oral reception of the message of Bhagavad. That's all. There's no need for initiation in the Bhagavad Sampradaya. In the Diksha Sampradaya, there's initiation. course, let's say formal initiation. If one hears the message of Bhagavatam, or if one hears Nam Sankirtan, which is also part of the Bhagavad system, then in fact, even without the formal initiation, he is initiated upon the receptiveness of the disciple. The real initiation is the receptivity of the disciple. When the disciple sees something wonderful and accepts it, that is initiation in terms of Bhagavad Sampradaya. But there are formalities according to the Pancharatrika Diksha system, which is coming in our other Sampradaya, the Diksha Sampradaya, which has its own pranali, separate from the Bhagavad pranali. Our Diksha Sampradaya is coming from Nityananda, from Jaivadharma. We're followers of Jaivadharma. As such, we are coming, those who will be having the Madhurya Ras, if they will be imbibing the mercy that is coming in the form of our mantras through that we've received through our Diksha Sampradaya, then it is very possible to become the follower of Anangamani, who is the topmost among all the manjaris. She is the supreme leader among the manjaris. Even Rupa and Rati, they follow Anangamani. Although Anangamanjari is considered to be as the Upamanjari of Lalit Devi. But that doesn't mean that we are not Rupanugas. They are our Shiksha Gurus. Anangamanjari is our Diksha Guru. Rupamanjari and Rati Manjari, they are our primary Shiksha Gurus. And Lavangamanjari. They are two rails of the train track. Both are useful. Both are helping us. And if you're not in the Madhurya Bhava, if you don't feel yourself to be eligible, then there's a transformed manifestation of that something. Just like you have to transform this 220 to run an American machine, 100 volt machine. There's no capacity for the machine to operate, blow it out. This is confirmed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaivadharma. So we don't preach as the so-called Gopi Bhava Club preaches that this sampradaya is only giving manjari. This is wrong preaching. But we shouldn't underestimate or let's say deprecate the fact that this manjari bhajan is the highest thing that this sampradaya has to offer. We shouldn't slight. Anyway, I don't know why I've spoken all these things. Hope you don't understand. was told that even if all of his disciples fell down, blew, went back to material life, that because his books are there, something solid says someone will come along and read the book and take up the symbol. This is the potency of the Bhagavad. There's a difference between the Bhagavad Sampradaya and the Diksha. But the purpose is ultimately the same, as to facilitate soul's attainment to the realm of friendship. That is the mercy of Nitai. Heno Nitai Vinibai, Radha Krishna. If you don't realize your connection with Nitai, then you can never. Who is Nitai? Nitai is not an ordinary, quote-unquote, manifestation of Buddha. Balaram is Aditi. Nitai is Balaram. Vrajindanandan Jay, Sachisutta Hoilo say, Balaram Hoilo Nitai. But everyone knows that Sachisutta is not only Vrajindanandan, he is Vrajindanandan coupled with his Swarup Shakti. Similarly, Nitai is not only Balaram, but he's Balaram coupled with his Swarup Shakti. And as such, he is able to, his topmost Swarup Shakti, as such, he's able to instrumentally act to distribute all five blessings. In our Guru Diksha Sampradaya, we have that power to distribute all five blessings, as representative of Nityananda Swarup Shakti. Prabhupada is Nityananda Swarup Shakti. And thus he has potency to give any of us. And he does. So we should aspire for something. Look deep within. Determination. Our life is very short. We don't have time to waste on superficial things. Not for a serious human being. Not everybody will say what I'm saying. You could hardly expect it. That doesn't mean I shouldn't say what I'm saying. We don't have time to waste. You cannot buy back even one moment for millions and millions and millions of dollars. So we should spend our time wisely, pursuing the ultimate goal of our life. And not give in to all the petty, what is it called? Nitpicking. Squabbles. Childish antics. have to be real with yourself. Follow your heart. And at the same time, intelligently consider how to satisfy your heart. Just like Arjuna had to use his brain, little something, to understand how to satisfy Draupadi and Krishna simultaneously. Krishna and Bhima were advocating that Ashwatthama should be killed. But Draupadi was giving all the reasons why he shouldn't be killed. So with a little use of his intelligence, he was able to ascertain the proper course of action. But don't let anyone ever tell you that it's not our business to deeply absorb ourselves in the purpose for which this Krishna consciousness really is. They do violence. Maybe that is Krishna's arrangement to sharpen your intelligence. Ultimately, Prabhupada is told that we can't blame anyone except ourselves for our lack of advancement. We can't blame this. Can't blame the circumstances. We should be Krishna conscious enough to be able to properly respond to every circumstance in such a way that Krishna is satisfied that you want to approach him in an eternal loving relationship. Every circumstance is meant for that. Just like Krishna's hiding from lotus. What could be more painful? Krishna's, after, five days of Brahma, of practice of Rag Sadhan Bhakti, the sages of Dandakaranya forest, they were able to attain a birth in the land of Braja as young gopis. They came so close. But when Krishna called them the flute, most of them ended up getting locked in their rooms. And they couldn't go to the hospital. What a calamity. He didn't have spiritual bodies. In spite of the fact that they attained Swarup Siddhi in their last life. They hadn't attained Vastu Siddhi. Because there was something lacking. The Purpura had maturity. There wasn't such anxiety to meet Krishna, which was on account of their previous sukarmas and vikarmas, the residue of their attachments to something other than that desire to meet with Krishna. So their desire was not strong enough. So they were not able to get around their husbands. That was a great distress for them. So they were victim of circumstance. But that circumstance served, to dam the flow of their river of devotion to the sea of Krishna. So when the dam breaks, when they let the water loose, and it comes with greater force. the gopis that were locked in the rooms, many of them, they attained the Golokdham even before the gopis had got the chance with Krishna. Prabhupada says that therefore feelings of separation are the fastest way to attain the lotus feet of Krishna. So all these circumstances are only for the purpose of increasing our feelings, increasing our anxiety to attain them. They're not meant to make us wallow in the cesspool of self-pity. They're meant to increase our anxiety for Krishna. Cry out for Krishna. There isn't anything that's happening to us which is not an arrangement of Krishna to thicken the plot, of the drama of our going back home, back to Godhead.
That's a plot.
All the politics, it's all serving just to thicken the plot, to make it more, make the victory more relishable after the long struggle. Krishna is very intelligent. But a devotee is also intelligent. A real Mahatma. A real Mahatma knows some secret which Krishna has mercifully disclosed as an open secret. But it's only realizable by those who are actually intelligent, who are actually Mahatma. Others can give lip service to the idea, but unless they're actually Mahatma, broad-minded, for great souls, and then they will not actually be able to perceive the utility, the value of the thing. Mahatmanas tumam partha. Jaivadharma prakriti. This is the secret. There's a very, very sweet thing which happens to those who take shelter of Radharani. Jaivadharma prakriti ultimately can mean any manifestation of the pleasure potency of Krishna, including Subal, or Raktak, or Nanda Yasoda. But primarily, Prabhupada has mentioned in quite a number of places that this Jaivadharma prakriti primarily refers to Radha. There's one very, very important and useful, solacing understanding which comes across on the basis of this principle, taking shelter of Jaivadharma. Why? Why take shelter of Jaivadharma? Because the soul is Vivanangsa, infinitesimal by nature. Just like the soul cannot withstand the onslaught of the material energy, which is much greater than the Vivanangsa soul, because the material energy is another manifestation, another face of Krishna's Sarup Shakti. The Shakti Tattva is of the unlimited category, as is Vishnu Tattva. The Jiva Tattva is limited, infinitesimal. As such, the Jiva will never be able to withstand the onslaught of Krishna's advances. Can you understand? when the jiva, if the jiva were to go back home, back to Godhead, without taking shelter of diving Prakriti, how do you think he will be able to say no to Krishna? Without hiding behind Radharani's skirt. He has to say no to Krishna. Why say no to Krishna? This is very, very nice thing to understand. Krishna's been saying no to us since time immemorial, basically. Keeping himself at a distance. Even when by his grace we get some inkling of an idea about approaching him. Sometimes it's said that if you take one step toward Krishna, Krishna takes 10 steps toward you. But there's another game Krishna's playing also. Is that yes, he takes 10 steps toward you, but then he backs up 20 steps. It makes you work harder. Then you take another step, and he takes 10 steps toward you, and then backs up another 20 steps. And it seems like he's getting further and further away. But he can immediately, if he wants, approach you on his terms, according to his own sweet will. But he's playing hard to get, because he knows as well as you and I know that no one likes to be taken cheaply. We took Krishna cheaply. That's why we could easily throw him away the first time. He doesn't want to be thrown away again. So he doesn't want to be taken cheaply. So he plays hard to get. After 5 kalpas, even the next time, there was Ras Maharas, the second Maharas. Krishna again called the gopis. And then all the gopis went there. At that time, Krishna said that some of you must have babies by this time, and they must be crying. So please just go back and feed them by your breast milk. What a joke. What a joke. I hope you don't mind this discussion. But to be real, according to our acharyas, they say that when those gopis who have been locked into the rooms, some of them, they burned their bodies in mystic fire. And in their spiritual body, they entered into Golok Dham and danced with Krishna in the Rasa dance at Golok itself. Others were not as fortunate in certain respects. They were molested by their husbands. They were touched by their husbands. It's more fortunate not to be touched by your husband if you happen to be. But these gopis were touched by their husbands because there was some residue of the inclination toward Vatsalya. So, as such, they bore children, and and they had to feed their children. This is the manifestation of their Vatsalya ras. Those children, like young toddlers, to become as future young friends of Krishna, boyfriends of Krishna, such, or servants of Krishna. But because they had heard from the other girls about how nice the Rasikas was, how wonderful, it increased their appreciation for the Madhurya. And they became fixed in the determination, in spite of the fact that they already had children. What did they do? They had to breastfeed their children and all these things. But they lost their desire for the Vatsalya affair. And on account of having associated with the girls who had already attained spiritual bodies, such as Ananda, Vigraha bodies. And having been introduced to the Nitya Parikar, eternal associates, like Lalita Devi, Radha, Rupa, etc. They got an intense desire to serve Krishna in Madhurya. So, when the next time Krishna played his flute, they dropped their babies. They dropped everything. Actually, it's described that our description of Ras Lila in Bhagavatam is an amalgamation of more than one Ras. You're aware of this? So, that description includes the second Rasa dance. So, when Krishna called them, they dropped their babies and went running. And what happened? You know what happened? In their intense anxiety, before they didn't have such intense anxiety on account of the attachment to their inclination to Vatsalya. But they lost that inclination. And as they were running to Rasmanda, their breast milk of Vatsalya Bhav dried up completely. So here was Krishna telling them that you've left your babies, so why don't you go back and feed them with your breast milk? To add insult to injury. They were already injured because they could not make the first fuss. But he is insulting them. Turning the screws a little bit. Rubbing it in a little bit. You see. Not only that, but others who did not have babies, because they did not have, but simply they didn't have sufficient purvara, and they didn't have such increment in their anxiety to meet with Krishna that they burned up in the mystic fire and went to Golok. But they attained the Ras Mandal in the next year, the next Sharat. So they were also beseeched to go back and faithfully serve their husbands and all these things. So this made them speechless, and they were pouring torrents and torrents of tears and washing away all their makeup, which they tried to in haste, decorate themselves for the pleasure of Krishna. Whatever decoration they could manage to get together was being washed away. You can just imagine. The black mascara on their eyes was being mixed with kumkum on their breast and falling into and making a mighty mess on the ground. Disaster. You know. So Krishna's the supreme heartbreaker. That's what makes Krishna Lila a bestseller. You know.
Is this the disc that we could record on tomorrow? Yeah, this machine.
Yeah, because it's useless.
Okay. And could you bring a DAT tape?
Yes.
Because
I already
they-
discussed it with him.
Oh, okay. He came back to me. Great. But this DAT, this
Oh, is that flame off? Someone turned it off? Huh? Did it
It's
burn?
off.
It's off. Did it burn? What happened? I guess it didn't burn. I don't know what happened over there. So, but anyway, it's important to understand this principle because I haven't gotten to the point yet. Is it too boring? You're not interested in these things?
Well, I guess get us the point now.
What time is it?
Now that you said there
10:30.
10:30? No.
No, 10:15.
Just give us the
So,
point.
wait a minute. You don't get it so easy. That's the whole point. Krishna doesn't want to be getting easily. That's why, you know, even they cried torrents of tears, and here they are. Krishna finally, you know, they defeat him by their logic. They defeated him, which is usual for gopis. They can easily defeat Krishna. But so they defeated him, and he agreed. Okay, you know, sounds good to me. And he began to embrace them and kiss them as they desired. You know? Then they became a little proud, thinking themselves to be the most fortunate girls in the whole universe, being favored by the company of Krishna. And then he disappears from them. And they're again crying. So then when he comes back, he says that it appears that my pure devotees are very much attached to me. But you should know that sometimes, what does he say?
I create a situation that's not very favorable.
No, he says, huh?
I make myself.
In other words, paraphrase it, that sometimes I appear to be lost
To them.
to them, just to increase their love for me more and more. He makes it like that. He says, you know, that actually I was not far from you. I was very near to you. But I appear to be lost. Actually, Krishna's within our hearts. How near can he get?
So I was just seeing how anxious you were for me.
I was just seeing how anxious. He's hiding behind, you know, a little skin fold in our heart, or fleshy, while we're searching for him everywhere except for where he could possibly be. You know. So in this way, Krishna plays hard to get. You know. He plays the disappearing act. You know. He goes, you know, aren't I so cute? You know, aren't you just enchanted by me? You know, and then he backs up, you know, hides behind another bush, And then he feely-dees on his flute again. And this way, he's enchanting us, you know. But he's playing hard to get. He doesn't want to be taken cheaply. But it's not that only Krishna doesn't want to be taken cheaply, but the devotees also don't want to be taken cheaply. Radharani doesn't want to be taken cheaply. Confirmed. Radharani doesn't want to be taken cheaply. Not only does Radharani not want to be taken cheaply, but you know, let's be real. Radharani is unlimited. It's not so easy for Krishna to take Radharani cheaply. You know, but a small, insignificant Vivanamsa, you know, infinitesimal jiva, it's very easy to sweep into the rug. You know, just how expensive could it be? You know, it's like one of the cheapest things you can imagine is a small little infinitesimal jiva compared to the great manifestations of Krishna's Swarup Shakti, who are manifest in millions and millions. You know, there's millions of Swarup Shakti manifestations of gopis and cowherd boys, and you know, Krishna can't take them very cheaply because they're of the unlimited category. But we're the complete opposite end of the spectrum category. Very easy for him to take us cheaply, wouldn't you think? But the jiva soul also doesn't want to be taken cheaply. After all, whatever little love we have is all that we got, you know. It counts a lot for us, you know. So we want it to count for Krishna too, you know. So we also have to have some facility to play hard to get, so that we're not taken cheaply. Just like Krishna plays hard to get, our whole, since time immemorial lifespan, you know, millions of lifespans, you know, Krishna's playing hard to get. You know, he's playing hard to get in the form of varieties of material illusions, which we're thinking to be that Krishna attraction that we're looking for, you know. And then he, like the will-o'-the-wisp, you know, slips through our fingers, you know. Everything is Krishna. There's nothing which isn't Krishna. Krishna and his energies are non-different, you know. So in fact, his illusory energy is also in him. But he's playing hard to get in every respect. You know, from the depths of our let's say sunk in the quagmire of material existence, you know, to the heights of our absolute, you know, freedom from material entanglement. There's nothing but Krishna and his hard to get kingdom, because he doesn't want to be taken cheaply. But you know, tit for tat. Krishna also, Krishna's devotees don't want to be taken cheaply either. So therefore, Daivim Prakriti Ashrit, we don't have the strength to play hard to get without taking shelter of those who have the strength to play hard to get. Radha is expert at playing hard to get. That is the beauty of this Vama, left-wing mood. This contrary nature of hers. We can also participate in that.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.